Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, Boss Didn't Want to Approve a Short Leave. So instead, I availed a long one. I work with a large organization having multiple branches in every state across the country. I am the head of one such branch. My boss, the regional manager, controls around 15 such branches in a region cluster. During August this year, I had asked my boss for a 5-day leave for September, which he had promptly granted. I then informed HR about it, suggesting him to temporarily arrange for somebody to run my branch for the week. This was required because, 1, due to some corporate directives, some of the branches, including mine, could not run without a branch head being physically present in the office. 2, enabling someone from inside the branch to substitute for me wasn't possible due to technicalities. HR assured me there was plenty of time to arrange for my temporary substitute, so I didn't think much about it, since anyway, it was his job to take care of it in cases of leaves. My dumb ass didn't imagine it would be so crucial to get the leave approved formally in writing, because before this, nobody ever faced something like what I was about to experience. Come the last working day before I go on my leave, I asked our HR about who would take care of my branch in my absence. He flatly stated that there was no one available in the region cluster who he could deputize to my branch in my stead, as many employees in our region are on leave because of festivities this week. Me, you are telling me this now? Anyway, I fail to understand how this is my problem, given that my leave was already granted a month ago. HR, have a discussion with the RM. My boss. I call him up. Apparently the HR had already had a talk with him regarding this matter before I even called him. RM, how could you intend to go on a leave during this time when we are already under so much pressure due to this sudden staff shortage? On top of that, our company's audit is due next month. Me, but you already had approved my leave 1 month ago. RM, no, I'm sure I must have said that I would think about it. Me, absolutely not. I wouldn't have booked my tickets and planned my travel to my hometown to see my parents if you hadn't confirmed the leave. This went to and fro for a while, and I was exasperated from this argument. By the end, I felt really humiliated that I had to almost beg for a leave. Me, fine, I won't go. At that point, I arguably felt my dignity was more important than a few days off work. RM, huh? Okay. He was at a loss of words at my sudden giving up, so my leave stood canceled. My tickets had to be canceled, money wasted, and I was left utterly exhausted at this bull crap. A few days later, we got a notification for the yearly Interstate Staff Soccer Tournament being arranged by corporate. If selected, I'd be playing for my state, and the tournament, from the selections till the final, would go on for a month. Soccer happens to be one of my favorite sports, so guess who just applied and got selected in the state team? Now here's the funny thing about sports and activities that are arranged by our company's corporate center. The top management takes these seasonal events very seriously. If you're a participating employee, nothing or nobody on this planet could make you rather go back to sit on your chair and mind your job instead of participating. So as it appeared, although not on a leave per se, but I was all set to go on a month-long tour across the country, playing soccer without having to worry about managing a branch and getting paid in the process. Even irrespective of my leave fiasco, this was a damn good thing to get involved in. As some of you may have expressed a curiosity, yes, extravagant events like these are not unheard of in big Fortune 500 companies. My organization is a large conglomerate and the third largest employer in our country. Still, it always beats my logic that they can spare some 150 to 200 employees for a month for fun, yet there are some regions that are plagued with staff scarcity. My boss's office was eventually informed about my participation in the event and was advised to excuse the participant from his duties till the tournament was over. The day before leaving, I drove down to the RM's office to formally inform him from my end about me competing in the event and my ensuing month-long absence that is to be expected. He looked expressionless and then just feebly asked me, "Why did you really participate?" Me, "Well, you see, had I happened to be at my hometown on a short leave this week, I wouldn't have been able to participate in the tournament at all, or even try for the selections. Sad, I couldn't go on that leave." The defeated look on his face was priceless. The next story is titled HOA Karen Pretends to be a Cop, Confiscates My Sports Car, and Gets It Towed. The story begins with me moving to a new place. I'm not really the social type of person, so I really didn't look up into the owners of the HOA or my neighbors. That's why I didn't know that this Karen woman was not actually a cop. This is a detail that would matter later in the story. So let's begin. Firstly, I can't say that I have many things that I'm proud of that I own. I'm as materialistic as I am a people lover, which means zero. But the one thing I cherish most of all my possessions is my car. I own a Porsche Cayman GTS, which makes me the happiest in the whole world. It was my dream car even since I was a small kid, and having it was like fulfilling the purpose of my life. The rest of my house makes it seem like I don't have money, when in reality I just don't find joy in buying a bunch of expensive things that work just as well as their cheaper counterparts. The HOA around here is strict, and the fines get handed out for a lot of stuff that shouldn't even matter. I once got a fine for leaving my trash cans out the entire day, which I only did because I wasn't home until that night. They weren't blocking anything, they were just on the grass on my property edge. Of course, they needed somebody to enforce and hand out fines to people, and that's where Karen came in. She was always the one to hand out fines and tell everything to the HOA, and so I thought she was a cop, helping around, keeping everything safe and sound. Even as an officer, we all thought she was a major Karen with the way she acted and always seemed to show up at the worst times. If you thought you could go against the law, even for just a minute, she would somehow just know and show up to give out fines. Everybody hated it, but nobody was going to argue with an officer and risk getting in trouble with the law. An HOA fine is one thing, but nobody wants to get an actual ticket from the police or get arrested. One day, though, she was on my property, and I noticed she was staring at my car. I didn't know what to make of it until I went over, and before I could even say hello, she started talking to me. "Karen, I'm going to have to confiscate this car." Me, "Why?" "Did I do something wrong?" Karen, "We believe this car doesn't have proper papers to be in this country. You can hand over the keys to me, or I can get a tow truck here and have it dragged to impound." I was confused by what she was saying, but I didn't want to cause any trouble. I was dumb and gave her the keys, being certain that the whole situation would be sorted out. I was also given an HOA fine for the car. That didn't make any sense. She didn't exactly explain or justify the reason of the fine, which made me angry and suspicious. And so I attended the HOA meeting. That's when I found out that Karen wasn't a cop, but just the HOA president. She disguised herself as a cop so she could give fines for everything she didn't like. I was furious and called her out in front of everybody at the meeting. She told me that I couldn't just use slander to get out of my fines, and was kicked out for disturbing the peace of the meeting. Since my neighbors also hated Karen, I let them know that I had found out who she really was, and that she was just faking to be a cop to intimidate us and get what she wanted. This also meant that my car had no legal issues. She just wanted to take it from me. We made a plan that my neighbor was going to intentionally break HOA rules to get her over to his house and fine him. I was going to film it from my yard because if she saw me, she would know that I already knew she wasn't official. Anyway, the bait worked, and my neighbor asked her things like if she was part of the local police department, and she said yes. Him, "I guess you know Kevin then, right? He is a cop there." Karen, "Of course, we're best friends." My neighbor was lying. He didn't know anyone called Kevin at that police station. We caught her red-handed, and the only thing left to do was now call the police on her for what she had done. Even putting aside that she had basically stolen my car, it is a crime here, like in most countries, to impersonate a police officer. We showed them what she was doing, and they easily confirmed that Karen in no way was a police officer. When I told them what she did with my car, they said that since it was over a certain value, she was going to get charged even worse. They came to arrest her, and she was still roaming around the neighborhood in her fake uniform and trying to get into everybody else's business. When the police got a hold of her, she started yelling that she is allowed to have a uniform because she is the head of the HOA, and her job is to protect the people. The thing is that if she had a uniform or badge that said HOA, she might have gotten away with that. Instead, she clearly had the police department she didn't work for all over the uniform and badge. She had no shame in admitting that she literally stole my car, also shaming me for how my house and I look. Karen: he doesn't deserve that car, I do, for all the work I put in this place. Policeman: lady, where is his car? Karen: I got it towed yesterday. I wanted to teach him and everyone here a lesson. I don't want people to look to our neighborhood and see a man like him driving a car like that. He should have stayed in his league. Fortunately, the police managed to get my car back. The car was in perfect condition, just as she left. The cops even admired it and congratulated me for having and taking care of such a beautiful car. Sad and happy at the same time, she wouldn't have to pay me anything for the damages. But I would rather it just not have been damaged in the first place. She was going to get in a ton of trouble anyway for the couple of crimes she was caught committing. For confiscating my car, she was charged with grand theft auto. The main charges against Karen were that of impersonating a police officer. At least in South Africa, we like to take those types of things very seriously to avoid more people doing it. She wasn't even given the option to plead guilty and get parole. Instead, she was going to jail, no matter what happened. She was sentenced to about a decade in prison, which felt like justice. That's why I'm telling you, keep your eyes open for crooks like this one. The last story is titled, Accuse Me of Sexual Assault? Have fun getting kicked out of 2 universities. I had a friend in college I met at the end of my freshman year. I'll call her Jane for the sake of this story. We were both 19 at the time. We started talking over the summer between freshman and sophomore year and became quick friends. I had pulled her into my friend group, and she became one of my small group of outcasts I had at college. Overall, things were not great, but I thought we could work on it. We both had toxic behaviors from neglectful homes to work through. Also of note is that I had a girlfriend that I had known since high school and had been together with since college had started. This is relevant because Jane had developed a pretty massive crush on me. I knew about it, but ignored it, figuring it would go away if I just didn't lean into anything. She was my friend, and I didn't want anything more. I loved my GF. Jane suffered from a neurological disorder I still don't understand, but it basically caused her to have seizures when she was stressed. The grand mal kind, where she would drop to the ground and convulse for several minutes. She couldn't always tell when these would happen, so I thought an emotional support animal might do her some good, because she loved dogs. We went to an animal shelter to see if she clicked with any and found a dog that we'll call Max. I put all of Max's adoption information under my name because I was already in their system, and we went home with a beautiful, well-behaved dog. She was the perfect fit, big enough to support Jane to the floor and provide deep pressure therapy as needed, but small enough for a dorm room, which he had to be because Jane had been kicked out of her house when her parents found out she was a lesbian. I figure we could get Jane settled into her dorm and start paperwork for Max's ESA clearance for school. Max had started picking up on warning signs and alerting before Jane would seize, and it all seemed to be going well. Only, Jane started lying about where we got the dog and her qualifications, small stuff at first, and then rapidly getting bigger and bigger, stuff that she shouldn't be lying about. At one point, she had claimed epilepsy, saying she got Max from an organization that provided service dogs for underprivileged and disabled adults, both of which were false. Max wasn't a service dog. Besides, she was an ESA, which is a massive difference. I confronted her about it, told her to stop, and she promised me she would, but she didn't. It got to the point where I found out she had never been kicked out of her house. Her parents knew she was gay and didn't care. She chose to leave and lied to us and the university for emergency housing. She had joined a service fraternity, and I found out she had been lying to everyone there, too. I couldn't take it anymore and decided to distance myself from her at the start of my junior year of college. Somehow, the university found out that she was being shady, and rather than face consequences, Jane left and started at a nearby university. I didn't think anything of it and stopped talking to her completely. 2 months later, I get a call from a friend Jane had made at her new school, basically saying she was sorry to believe everything Jane said. Jane is a pathological liar, and that I need to be careful because Jane was spreading some pretty serious accusations about me. It took a little pressure, but I found out Jane was saying that my GF and I had been in a relationship with her, but kicked her out after SAing her because she was too clingy. That's apparently when this friend realized Jane was full of crap, because I'm pretty vocal about being asexual and sex repulsed. Not to mention, I'm literally not that type. I was naturally pissed that Jane was trying to do such horrible things, so I called the head of her fraternity and told them everything I knew about Jane and everything she had lied about, including Max's qualifications and her need for housing. Apparently they knew she was lying but didn't have any evidence to bring it up to the university until then. The university I went to told the university Jane was attending, and she was subsequently barred from both schools, with no promise of transferable credits on terms of fraud. I called her after the ruling and told her to keep my name out of her mouth, or getting kicked out of school would be the least of her worries. Haven't heard from her since. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you would like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.